At 4:18 p.m. local time, the Caribbean appears almost unnaturally calm. The sea is smooth, the wind is light, the swell is minimal, and visibility reaches far into the distance. For a U.S. Navy Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer, it should feel like another ordinary patrol through international waters. The kind of mission sailors record and move on from without a second thought. But inside the ship, no one is treating it as ordinary. In the Combat Information Center, radar displays cast a soft glow as contacts move steadily across the screens. Most of them are exactly what the crew expects to see: distant commercial traffic, slow civilian vessels, and the occasional regional patrol craft keeping well clear. Then one contact begins to stand apart. At first, it does not seem especially unusual. A Venezuelan naval vessel. Surface contact. Stable speed. Running on a parallel course. In the Caribbean, that kind of shadowing is not uncommon. It can happen after interdictions, after seizures, or after any event that leaves regional tensions simmering. Most of the time, it remains controlled. Most of the time. Then, the numbers begin to shift. The Venezuelan ship changes course, not subtly, not gradually, but with clear intent. Its bow turns inward, lining up directly toward the U.S. destroyer. Almost at once, its speed rises. Not normal transit speed, not routine patrol speed, intercept speed. On radar, the CPA, closest point of approach, starts dropping fast. 4 nautical miles, 3.7, 3.2. The radar operator calls it out. In the CIC, the surface warfare officer confirms the new track. Conversations become shorter. Casual chatter disappears, replaced by clipped, exact communication. This is no longer routine observation. This is now an active situation. On the bridge, binoculars come up. The Venezuelan vessel is clearly visible now. Gray hull, naval profile, crew moving on deck. This is not a civilian ship, and this is not a navigational error. Standard procedure begins immediately. The first radio call goes out over open frequencies. Unidentified Venezuelan naval vessel, this is a United States Navy warship operating in international waters. You are closing at high speed. Alter course immediately. No reply. A second call follows, this time in Spanish. Clear, professional, exactly by procedure. Still nothing. At sea, silence at close range is never meaningless. It is a decision, and every decision demands one in return. The destroyer does not turn away. It does not pick up speed. It does not overreact. Instead, it starts building a complete record of everything unfolding around it. Every timestamp, every bearing change, every speed adjustment, every movement is documented. The ship's SPY-1D radar keeps the Venezuelan vessel locked in with exact precision. Below deck, the SLQ-32 electronic warfare system begins capturing emissions, radar activity, and signal patterns. Anything the other ship is willing to reveal. This is not the setup for chaos. It is the setup for accountability. The CPA falls below 3 nautical miles. At that distance, major incidents rarely begin with dramatic action. They begin with misjudgment. A sudden turn, a correction made too late. One moment where ego overrides seamanship. And still, the Venezuelan ship keeps closing. No evasive move, no radio contact, no visible effort to create separation. The approach feels deliberate, tightening the space between the two ships and testing discipline without saying a word. Pressure is being applied, and it is being applied very carefully. On the bridge of the U.S. destroyer, the captain studies the situation in silence. The rules of engagement are clear. Weapons remain cold, but posture matters. Presence matters. And whatever happens next will shape everything that follows. This is the kind of moment history often mislabels after the fact. Some people will call it confusion. Others will call it a deliberate challenge. But sailors standing watch know the truth. Ships do not change course on their own, and they do not accelerate by accident. Now the Venezuelan vessel is inside a range where intent can no longer be dismissed, and yet no one fires. No alarms shatter the air, no dramatic maneuver cuts across the calm water. The U.S. Navy does not flinch, but it also does not hurry. Because sometimes the strongest response is not loud, it is not aggressive, and it is not the one anyone expects. Then, only minutes later, the U.S. Navy makes a move the Venezuelan crew did not see coming. Not a move meant to threaten, but one designed to force a choice. That is when the situation truly changes. Inside the destroyer, the mood tightens further, not with fear, but with concentration. This is the point where normal routine ends and pure procedure takes over. Inside the Combat Information Center, the Venezuelan ship is no longer just another mark on the screen. It now has a designation, a track number, and a growing profile of data building line by line. Speed rising, course narrowing, CPA, slipping below normal safety margins. Everyone on watch understands exactly what that means. The surface warfare coordinator leans in toward the display. He does not need to raise his voice. Nobody in the room needs an explanation. At sea, distance equals time, and time is the only barrier between a tense encounter and a serious incident. Across the ship, the systems respond in quiet, almost invisible ways. The SPY-1D radar sharpens its tracking, feeding cleaner and more precise vectors into the combat system. The destroyer's cameras automatically cue in, long-range optics locking onto the approaching Venezuelan vessel. Fresh video appears on auxiliary screens, magnified views of the other ship's bow, superstructure, and activity on deck. Crew members can be seen moving, not chaotically, not urgently, deliberately. That matters. If this were confusion, there would be hesitation. If this were a mistake, there would be correction. Instead, the Venezuelan vessel holds its line. Steady, assertive, impossible to dismiss. Below deck, the SLQ-32 electronic warfare suite begins flagging emissions. Low-power surface search radar, intermittent sweeps. Nothing that suggests direct weapons guidance, at least not yet, but enough to show active tracking. The data is logged automatically. Frequencies, pulse repetitions, signal strength, every detail stored with precision. This is how modern standoffs often unfold, not through dramatic action, but through records, signals, and evidence. On the bridge, the officer of the deck updates the captain. Under 3 nautical miles now. Still closing. No response to radio calls. No change in heading. The captain gives a single nod. Maintain course and speed. That order is not about pride. It is about legality. Under international maritime rules, changing course here could be interpreted as yielding the right of way, or worse, accepting the other vessel's attempt to dictate movement in open water. The U.S. destroyer is operating lawfully, openly, and with full control. It will not move unless safety makes it necessary. But safety is exactly what is being tested. Inside the CIC, contingency procedures are already moving in parallel. Notification checklists, escalation reviews, de-escalation protocols, aviation support status, communications records, non-lethal response measures. This is the quiet difference between a disciplined Navy and a reckless one. Every option is reviewed before any option is needed. The Venezuelan vessel keeps coming. At this distance, even a sudden turn by either ship could create dangerous wake interaction. Hydrodynamic force alone could disrupt control. Everyone involved understands that, which makes the continued closing pattern harder and harder to explain away as anything accidental. Another sensor update comes in. The Venezuelan ship's speed has stabilized. Fast, but steady. Its heading remains unchanged. To any trained mariner, that sends a very clear message. The pressure is intentional, but short of contact. The captain studies the plot again. He knows exactly what his ship is capable of. He also knows exactly what it does not need to do. An overreaction here would hand away the narrative, but doing absolutely nothing would invite more pressure, and possibly more risk. The answer is not force. The answer is presence. He turns slightly toward the air operations officer. Prepare the helo. That command does not shift the destroyer into a hostile posture. It shifts it into a posture that cannot be misunderstood. On the flight deck, the crew moves with controlled speed. The MH-60 Seahawk sits secured and folded, its gray fuselage almost blending into the steel around it. Sailors remove tie-downs and begin pre-flight checks with practiced precision. There is no frantic motion, only discipline. Every step has been rehearsed. Every movement has purpose. Back in the CIC, the Venezuelan track remains unchanged. The CPA now hangs near the kind of threshold naval officers never like to test for long. The helicopter's systems begin coming online. Sensors warming up, data links syncing with the ship's combat network. The Seahawk is not being launched to intimidate. It is not about to make an aggressive pass. It is being prepared for something far more effective. To widen the destroyer's awareness, to document every move from above, and to make sure the other ship understands one simple fact. Nothing out here is going unseen. Its mission is simple. Observe and send a message without saying a word. Above deck, the rotors begin to spin. Slow at first, then building speed. From the Venezuelan ship, the sound cannot be ignored. And for the first time since the encounter started, the balance of attention begins to shift. Ships can ignore radio warnings. They can act as if radar logs do not matter. But when a Navy helicopter rises from the deck of the ship, you are pressuring and moves into the space between you and your objective. Calm, steady, and recording everything, the encounter enters a different stage. And that stage requires a decision. The helicopter lifts smoothly from the destroyer's deck and glides into open air, rotors cutting a steady rhythm across the sea. From the bridge of the U.S. destroyer, the launch is routine. From the Venezuelan vessel, it is anything but. Because this is the point where signaling ends and consequences begin. At sea, there are boundaries that never appear on charts. They are not marked by treaties or borders, but by actions, speed, angle, silence, and intent. Every Navy understands them, whether they admit it publicly or not. One of those boundaries is simple. You do not close aggressively on a warship and ignore repeated calls unless you intend to be noticed. The MH-60 Seahawk does not charge toward the Venezuelan ship. It does not fly low in a dramatic pass or make any reckless movement. Instead, it settles into a controlled position. Offset, elevated, clearly visible. Its sensors activate immediately. Live imagery streams back to the destroyer's combat systems. Infrared scans, optical zoom, laser range data. Every detail of the Venezuelan vessel is now being captured. Every movement on deck, every heat source, every visible feature, time-stamped and stored. This is not intimidation. This is documentation. Inside the CIC, the atmosphere shifts once more. The Venezuelan ship's radar activity rises slightly. Still not weapons guidance, still not a direct lock, but no longer passive. The SLQ-32 flags it instantly. Data scrolls across the displays. Frequency, strength, duration. They are tracking the helicopter now. That matters. Tracking alone is not hostile. But combined with aggressive maneuvering and earlier radio silence, it pushes the encounter closer to a threshold professional navies work hard to avoid. This is how dangerous incidents begin. Not with a clear decision to attack, but with too many signals layered on top of each other. On the bridge, the captain monitors both the surface picture and the air picture. The Venezuelan vessel remains on a converging path, but one detail has changed. Its speed is no longer increasing. To most people, that shift would be invisible. To trained eyes, it stands out immediately. Pressure is being felt. This is the core of modern naval confrontation. No dramatic weapons display, no explosions, just measured leverage applied at exactly the right moment. The helicopter begins a slow lateral pass, remaining fully within international airspace. Its laser marker flashes briefly, not as a strike signal, but as a clear visual indicator. A bright point appears across the Venezuelan ship's superstructure, then steadies near the bridge. Impossible to ignore. On deck, sailors pause. Some look upward. Others move toward the rear of the vessel. Through the Seahawk's cameras, body language becomes clear. This is not panic, but it is no longer confidence. Then, for the first time since the encounter began, the situation changes. The Venezuelan ship adjusts course. Not sharply, not dramatically, just a few degrees. Enough to widen the CPA, enough to show reconsideration. Moments later, its speed begins to fall, gradually, carefully, as if the crew wants the change to look self-directed. Inside the CIC, the numbers confirm everything. CPA increasing, relative bearing stabilizing, closure rate dropping. The boundary was approached but not crossed. The helicopter remains in position a moment longer, continuing to record. No shouted warnings, no dramatic gestures, none are needed. The message has already been delivered. We see you, we documented you, and we are ready to respond further if necessary. Then a radio transmission finally breaks the silence. Not an apology, not a retreat, just words. A claim of sovereign patrol activity. A request for the U.S. ship to alter course. Carefully phrased, politically familiar, but most importantly, it is communication. The destroyer replies immediately, calm and controlled. This is a United States Navy warship conducting lawful transit in international waters. Your unsafe maneuvering has been recorded. No threats, no ultimatums, just facts delivered with complete control. The helicopter breaks away, climbing smoothly and curving back toward the destroyer. The Venezuelan ship continues to slow, its bow now clearly angled away from the U.S. vessel's path. Little by little, the encounter begins to unwind with the same caution that shaped it. No one celebrates, no one eases up just yet, because both crews understand what really happened. This was never about winning a showdown. It was about establishing a limit. The Venezuelan Navy tested how close it could push without drawing a response. The U.S. Navy answered without a single shot, but with unmistakable clarity. At sea, that can be the most serious kind of message. And next time, the margin to that line may be even smaller. From the Venezuelan ship, the moment feels different now. Until this point, the encounter has been all steel and distance. Hulls moving through open water, numbers shifting across radar screens, silence carrying most of the meaning. But the instant the helicopter settles into position and the bright point of its laser touches the bridge windows, the situation becomes personal. This is no longer an abstract contest of angles and speed. This is direct awareness. Through the Seahawk's forward camera, faces begin to appear. Helmets, binoculars, a hand lifting for a moment, then dropping again. The image is sharp enough to catch a change in posture, the moment when certainty begins to give way to hesitation. A helicopter collapses distance in a way ships never can, and that is exactly why it was launched. On board the U.S. destroyer, the CIC watches the live feed as it comes in. The aircrew says little, only what is necessary. Every second of footage is timestamped, geolocated, and copied into redundant storage. This is no longer just observation, it is evidence. Below, the Venezuelan ship's wake begins to shorten. At first, the change is subtle, easy for an untrained eye to miss. But sailors who know what to watch for see it immediately. One not less, then another. The bow angle opens slightly. The tight intercept geometry begins to relax. This is the critical point. If the Venezuelan crew turns back in, adds speed, keeps closing, and ignores the helicopter, the situation moves into something far more dangerous. At this range, there would be almost no room for error and even less room for diplomacy. But that is not what happens. Instead, the Venezuelan ship steadies. The aggressive geometry fades. The CPA widens enough to return to the zone of safety, even if national pride still demands staying nearby. Then the radio finally comes alive. United States naval vessel, we are conducting sovereign patrol operations in the vicinity of Venezuelan waters. It is a carefully built sentence, not an apology, not an admission, but it is also no longer silence. And in encounters at sea, speaking at all is its own form of concession. The U.S. reply comes back immediately. This is a United States Navy warship conducting lawful transit in international waters. Your unsafe maneuvers have been recorded. No threats, no demands, only a statement of fact. The helicopter remains on station for one more long, quiet orbit. The camera stays fixed. The laser does not return. It does not need to. The message has already landed. On the Venezuelan deck, sailors begin stepping back from the forward gun mount. One crew member briefly raises both hands, palms out, a gesture sailors anywhere would understand. Not surrender. Acknowledgement. Then the helicopter turns away. Its climb is smooth and unhurried, with no dramatic pull-up and no aggressive bank, just a controlled arc back toward the destroyer. The sound of the rotors fades into the low, constant hum of the sea. As it departs, the Venezuelan ship holds its reduced speed and altered heading. For all practical purposes, the encounter is over. Back on the U.S. destroyer, the Seahawk lands and is secured without ceremony. The deck crew works with the same efficiency as before, already shifting back toward normal operations. Inside the CIC, logs are completed, video is cataloged, and sensor data is archived. Every part of the encounter, from the first course change to the final radio call, is now preserved in precise detail. This is how modern naval power often speaks. Not through destruction, not through shouted warnings, but through discipline, documentation, and the ability to apply pressure without losing control. From a distance, some people might mistake restraint for weakness. Navies do not. They measure strength by results, and in this encounter, only one side changed course. The Venezuelan ship remains visible on radar, now well outside any dangerous approach. It does not fully withdraw, but it does not renew the challenge either. It simply stays at a distance that accepts reality, and that, in its own way, is the outcome. Because the real objective was never to dominate the sea that afternoon. It was to prove that escalation is a choice, and that the side with greater control is the one that decides when the moment ends. No shots, no damage, no headlines, at least not yet. But the message was delivered clearly, quietly, and in full view of every sensor watching the Caribbean that day. And for anyone thinking about trying the same move, the record already tells the story. The U.S. Navy does not need to chase. It only needs to stay ready, stay steady, and keep recording. By the time the helicopter is secured and the flight deck falls silent again, the Caribbean looks exactly the way it did before the encounter began. The same calm water, the same endless horizon, the same false sense of peace. But the situation is no longer the same. Inside the U.S. destroyer, the real work continues long after the Venezuelan ship has opened the distance. This is the part most people never see. No dramatic visuals, no frantic shouting over the radio. Just trained professionals doing the work modern naval power actually depends on. Logs are checked again. Sensor data is compared and verified. Video timelines are synchronized down to the second. Every course change, every speed increase, every stretch of radio silence, every word spoken once that silence finally ended. All of it becomes part of the official record. Not for attention, for history, for legal review, for the next encounter. Because there is always a next encounter. The Venezuelan vessel stays on radar for hours, holding a parallel track now at a distance that shows caution. It does not try another close approach. It does not test the airspace again. Whatever message it meant to send has already been answered. Not with force, but with control. And that is the part many people miss. This was never about bigger weapons or faster ships. The result was shaped long before any weapon system could even matter. It was shaped by discipline, by restraint, and by a clear understanding of how pressure builds at sea. Venezuela pushed in fast, likely expecting proximity to create leverage, expecting tension to force a reaction. Instead, it triggered something far more dangerous for its position: visibility. Every aggressive move was captured. Every unsafe maneuver was documented. Every claim of sovereign patrol now stands beside precise, time-stamped evidence showing exactly how the encounter unfolded. In the modern maritime world, evidence is power. If the U.S. ship had fired a warning shot, the entire narrative would have changed in an instant. If it had turned away first, that signal would have been read differently across the region. But by holding course, launching the helicopter, and forcing communication without pushing the situation over the edge, the U.S. Navy controlled both the encounter and the story that came out of it. That is how gray zone confrontations are handled successfully. Not by stepping over the line, but by making the other side step back from it. For the Venezuelan Navy, the lesson is quiet but unmistakable. Aggressive approaches do not guarantee concessions. They invite scrutiny. And scrutiny is costly when every move can be measured against international law. For the U.S. Navy, the lesson is reinforced once again. Presence matters, documentation matters, and restraint, when backed by overwhelming capability, is not weakness. It is leverage. No medals are handed out for moments like this. No major statements follow. Sailors finish the watch, close the logs, and continue the mission. That is exactly how it is supposed to work. But somewhere else, or in briefing rooms, intelligence centers, and foreign naval headquarters, this encounter will be reviewed frame by frame. The angles, the timing, the response, the exact moment pressure met discipline and discipline held. Because next time, the ship may be different. The sea may be rougher. The margin for error may be smaller. And the same question will return. How close is too close? How fast is too fast? And what happens when restraint is mistaken for hesitation? That question is not theoretical. It is being tested again and again in waters like these. And that leads to the real takeaway. This encounter did not end because one side was louder. It ended because one side stayed in control. And in modern naval confrontation, control is everything. Now think about it for yourself. If you were standing on the bridge of that destroyer, watching a foreign warship close in fast, ignore repeated calls, and push the limits, would you have held course or reacted harder? Share your view in the comments, because the next time something like this happens, and it probably will, the answer may shape more than just the discussion. It may shape what happens out on the water.